Let's continue with the positioning of the UI in a low-resolution pixel game. After you watched the video I suggested to you, you probably have understood how the anchoring and margins work in theory. But I want to go even more simple. I want you to keep only the essential. Whenever you want to position something on the screen in a low-resolution game, you only want to position it in regards to one of the corners. If you think about the times back then when you were working with pixels, 99% of the time you would position from the top left corner. You would have a certain amount of pixels to the right and a certain amount of pixels to the bottom. And that's exactly what we're going to do, what I'm going to show you how to do, except today maybe we're going to work also with the bottom right because we want to have a button sticking there. So let's rewind a little bit. This is your computer screen, your game window. This is your viewport. And if you watch the video, you know that the viewport is important. And when there is no viewport, no explicit viewport, then the viewport is your game's window. And then you're going to want to put UI controls in there. For example, buttons. And again, if you remember the video, you know that those buttons are placed in relation to their container. There is such a thing as a container. And when there is no explicit container, then the container is the screen, is the game's window. So you don't always need an explicit container, but you need to imagine that it's there. Okay. So now, how do we position this button? Like I said, you need to think in terms of corner. And how do you tell Godot which corner you want to work with? Well, the corner is the intersection of two things. The top anchor and the left anchor. This is the left anchor, this is the top anchor. So if you remember, you have a whole set of anchors, you have a whole rectangle, top anchor, left anchor, bottom anchor, and right anchor. But when you want to work with a corner, you're only interested in two of them, the two that make the intersection of this point. But then you will ask, how can I be sure that the anchor is exactly in the corner of the window, of the screen? Well, if you remember, you're supposed to say how many percent away from the top or from the left this anchor finds itself. For example, if I had decided that it should be 10% away from the left, then it would be approximately here. And by the way, it's not expressed in percents in Godot. It's expressed 0 to 1. So this 10% would be called 0.1 instead of 10%. But in my case, I do not care about that because I do not want to work with percentage of the screen and percentage away from the borders. I want to work strictly with my borders because I want to work with my corners. So the anchors in your starting point will always be 0 for the top, 0 for the left, and 1 for the bottom and 1 for the right. This way I'm sure I can work with this point, this point, this point, and this point. Perfect. But then there is one last thing that I need to tell the engine, is if I want to work from the top left and go like this, or more precisely down and right, remember, top amount of pixels, right amount of pixels. If I want to work with that, it's not the same as if I want to work from the bottom and go up or go left. Well, you decide that with the grow direction. How is it called? Horizontal grow end. I would find it more explicit to call it left to right. It's really developer talk. Left to right, and vertical end means top to bottom. In CSS it has a different name. It's called I don't remember. It has a name for to help you when you want to work right to left. For example, if you're displaying Arabic text, it has a way of naming the main direction and the reverse direction. But anyway, that's a little sidetrack. But it's the same kind of reasoning. And if you want to go like this, then the grow should be horizontal begin, because you go towards the beginning instead of going towards the end. And same thing here. And of course, I'm not saying it, but if you want to go like this, it would be horizontal end, because you're going left to right, and vertical this time end, begin, because you want to go bottom to top, and so on and so on. So now you've understood how to make those points stick to the corners. You've understood how to not have a margin here by having 0, 0 and 1, 1 for the margins, for the anchors, I mean, and you have understood how to decide in which direction it's going. Now there is one last thing that you need to understand. Imagine if you want to have, let's say, a button here. How do I position those coordinates? Well, it's the margin. It's what they call the margin. But there is something tricky, is that in this case the margin is very intuitive. For example, 10 pixels and I don't know, 5 pixels. So it makes perfect sense to you. But what if it was here? What if I wanted to position something here? Well, it's a bit weird, but you need to get used to it. You need to work with the corner that's the closest to the edges, in this case this, and you need to tell, starting from this point, you always have to think, starting from this point, in which direction am I going and how much? So look closely. We start from here and we're going that much. And we have seen, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit, we're going that much to the left, and we have seen here that to go that much to the right we had entered plus 10 in the margin. Well, logically it means that here you have to go minus 10s. So if you have something in the bottom right corner, then you have negative margins. And that's all there is to it. If you go up minus 10 like minus 5 like this, minus 10 like this. And there you go. Now you know how to position everything, relying on only on your analytical skills. But now I have good news for you. Godot can do that for you. And there's something really stupid in the Godot interface, and I can never get tired of saying how stupid Godot's interface is. If you had a button here, and so I can see it here, I'm going to make it bigger. This is my new button, and I want it to be, for example, in the bottom right corner. Well, normally I would need to work with the anchor and with the margin, and I would need to remember, so 0, 0, 1, 1, and then negative margins like I just demonstrated in the paint image. But there is this magic button here, which for some reason is not here, and you would never know it exists. It's a different flow. You can tell it, please put the control in the bottom right, and it's going to compute everything for you. And the thing to understand is that this is not permanent. You have not decided that this button would be forever to the bottom right. At least it will stay forever there if you don't change those. What it does is that at any given moment, if you click this button, it will calculate those values for that button to be where you want it. It will calculate it once and for all, and then it will work. And if I move it, I will break that. So I need to do it again for it to recalculate where it should be. And I can do it anywhere I want. And every time it will recalculate this for you, as if you had used your brain to decide that instead of having done it with the UI. Okay, let's put that in application for our pixel game. So we had this very fancy, very responsive UI that uses spaces and stuff. But can we use our newly acquired knowledge to do that more simply? I'm only interested in this button and this button. I want this one to be always in the bottom right and this one to be always in the bottom left. Let's do it. I'm going to move them to the root of the UI. And I'm going to get rid of this. Does it work? Did I break something by changing the hierarchy? Let me run the room. Uh-oh, the game crashes. Let's have a look at the errors. It says here that there is a null node. Well, I can see here that this no longer exists. Let's remove it. And what does it do? It might not be obvious straight away, but it's trying to inject this room select scene as a child of this node. And if you remember from an earlier video, I told you that there is this special control that gets injected at runtime to let you, it's a debug control to let you teleport to a given room. Well, there it is. That's where it's trying to do it, and since you have deleted a node, then it didn't work anymore. But now that I've simplified it, let's try again. Do I get a crash? No, I do not get a crash. Does my UI still work? Yes, it still works. However, my menu button now is hidden. Let's make sure that it's hidden and not just that I didn't break something. So what happened is that if I remove all this code that's supposed to inject those special debug buttons, yes, the menu button is there, so it works. I did not break this, I was just hiding it by having modified the layout a little bit too brutishly. Let's go back to the structure there. Let's use the magic button to put this in the bottom left, and let's use the magic button to put this in the bottom right. And you know what? Let's add a little bit of margin. So if you remember, I can just change that manually. Remember, you should never change the rect values. Never, ever, 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 because it's computed based off of that. It doesn't mean anything because it will change at runtime, except for min size. This one you're allowed to. Refer to the video I gave you to watch, but those ones you should never change. So let's work simply with the margin. Let's move a little bit more to the left. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I see now that maybe the UI, see, is still a bit too fancy because it still stretches some stuff which I don't want in a pixel art game. So I will just give up on my attempt of showing you how to add margins. We're going to do it next time. Maybe it works with this button. Nope, this one resizes as well. So never mind. We'll see that another time. It might actually be because it is stretching. It has a stretch parameter somewhere. I can't find it anymore right now. But whatever, now those buttons are nicely positioned in the bottom left and bottom right corner of the screen in absolute positioning, like I want for my pixel art game. I don't have to worry anymore about proportional positioning and relative positioning. I have succeeded in working with the corners of the screen. We'll see how to go further in the next video.